You know, Rachel, first of all, as a communicator, you're very inspiring. But one of the reasons you're very inspiring is you're very real. What you shared with us is not a secret.
Exactly.
Pretty much what she said, all of us already knew. Is that not true?
Absolutely.
So what inspired us? Was it what she said? No, it's what she did. Now catch this. It's what she did. What she said was good, but what she said was really good because she had done it. In other words, we want to back up all of your connections and communications with your actions. And so the credibility isn't the teaching, the credibility is the living. But when the living is good, the teaching gets better. And there are a whole bunch of people that are trying to give people something they don't have. And we teach what we know, but we reproduce who we are. And so, Rachel, it was terrific, and I'm so excited, and we're going to have this, and we're going to have some time a little bit later to even get better acquainted, but you really did a great job. So let's talk about growth, okay?
Yes.
What is of all of you've done a lot of growing, it's obvious. What would you be maybe most proud of as far as your growth accomplishment, an area where you just really say, wow, I really grew in that area?
So I think the area that I have struggled the most as an adult and that I'm most proud of is growing as a mom, at which you have to understand, this sounds really obnoxious, but I'm good at work. I'm good. I can go in a room, I can run a team, I can do a meeting, I can scale a business, and then I would go home, and it was really hard at home. Meaning, anyone ever had a toddler at home? Anyone ever stayed at work a little bit longer because that was easier than dealing with the toddlers who were at home? Be honest. That was me. And so I really struggled, and I felt so much shame about that because I thought, as a woman, I feel like I'm supposed to just feel natural at this, and I didn't feel natural at it. And I managed that season of my life by drinking. I drank way too much to try and make myself feel calmer and to try and show up for everybody, and it led to massive anxiety. And it really was, my personal growth journey started on the business side of things. Like, I wanted to know how to grow my business, and so I started teaching myself these lessons. And then when I was in this really hard season with these 2 young kids and drinking and having anxiety attacks every day, I thought, I wonder if I could apply the way that I've approached learning about business to the way that I approach learning about taking care of myself and showing up for my family in the way that I wish that I could. And I did, and it took years, but I'm so proud, more than anything that I've done, I'm proud of the relationship that I have in my marriage and with my children, because that doesn't come as easy to me as this does. It's harder, and very few women will admit that. I think a lot of guys, when I talk to a lot of dads, are like, hey, I hear you, sister. But moms aren't supposed to say that. They're not supposed to say that it's hard for them, and it is hard for me. And I just finally did the work and was more graceful with myself and slowed down and didn't need to please everybody all the time. And it really became the life that I had always wanted to have. And I never, ever would have been able to tell you that life at home was what was going to give me the life I wanted. I always thought, I grew up poor. So I thought if I could just make enough money, if I could just grow the business, that'll make me happy.
Sure.
So as odd as that sounds, that really is the thing I'm most proud of.
Well, and I think, Rachel, the hardest growth is the growth that you're either not committed to or not passionate about or not gifted in.
Yeah, that's so real.
And it sounds to me like the business was the natural growth, and so you kind of took to it like a duck to water, but the other was something you had to, I don't know, make yourself do.
Absolutely.
That whole process. So help us out, because I think all of us have areas where we need to grow, but we're not really gifted to grow in that area.
Absolutely.
So could you give us just one little nugget of what we need to do to go do something that we're not really that committed to or that good at?
Well, I think the first step is probably admitting your weakness without shame. because shame is defeating.
Yeah, that's right.
Shame doesn't help you. It doesn't motivate you. Admitting that you were struggling in this area, for me, admitting that I was struggling was empowering.
Sure.
When I was able to do it without shame. And also understanding the whys. So in the same way that I didn't have an example of a strong marriage, I didn't have an example of the kind of parent that I want to be. And just because you don't have an example of something doesn't mean that you can't teach yourself. So that was like an epiphany for me. Like, dang, you taught yourself what a balance sheet is. You taught yourself how to grow your revenue. You taught yourself these. If you can teach yourself one thing, you can teach yourself anything. And that includes personal stuff. I don't think people think of that.
I've heard you half a dozen times today talking about teaching yourself and Google. And okay, let's go that route for a moment, because I think most people, they say, the reason I'm not growing is I've not had a good mentor yet, or I've not had somebody come into my life that, yeah.
I can't even hear that. I really cannot. Because in an age of this much free information, your ignorance is a choice. I can't hear that. I cannot. My style of teaching, it's a thing that I get picked on for most, is, there's been pieces written in papers and things about how dangerous my message is. My message that anyone can do anything. That's my message. They're like, this is so dangerous. Because what about the people who have these circumstances? What about the people who come from these places? And I'm like, there are too many examples of people who have fought their way out of that adversity for you to keep holding on to that excuse.
That's right. No, it's very true.
It drives me crazy, because even if that's true, and I'm not belittling your trauma, I've walked through my own. I'm not belittling the season you're in or the trauma that you carry. We are not responsible for the bad things that happen to us, but we are responsible for our healing. And if other people can do it, certainly there are examples of people who couldn't. But if you can see these stories, if you can see the mentors, if you can read the books, if you can go on and do the research about the people who have come out of adversity and they are killing it, why not latch on to that truth instead of the one over here that says all the reasons you're not going to measure up? How does that serve you?
And yet we live in a culture that is so filled with it.
Absolutely.
And I just, I love the fact your message is dangerous, but we look at somebody that is a victim message and we somehow want to cuddle that.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reasons where our country is where it is today.
Yeah.
Is because we haven't picked ourselves up. Okay, let's talk about leadership a little bit. So when did I'm going to assume you did it like every other way. You one day said, I want to be a leader. I mean, how did you know you were a leader? How did that all happen?
Gosh, I don't know that I, Dave Ramsey has that great thing where he talks about, a baby's born, and they're like, oh, a leader. They say, natural born leader. That's not a thing. It's something that you teach yourself. But I don't know that I really grasped it in that way. I think I started a business. And when I hired my first employee, it was like, well, sis, you better figure out something. And truthfully, it took a long time. It took a lot of starts and stops and failing, and really feel like I was not doing a good job, not leading them well. One of the most powerful things I've ever heard as a business owner